There is a teaching I rarely give in full, because most are not ready to hear it. You are never describing reality, you are always prescribing it. When you complain, you are not reporting facts. You are issuing orders to the infinite. And the infinite, being your own wonderful human imagination, has no choice but to obey. For 3 days, I am going to give you the single sentence that has dissolved debt, healed bodies, and summoned love from the invisible. But only if you agree to this. You will speak nothing that contradicts it. Not once. Can you do that? Because if you can, I promise you the miracle is not coming. It has already begun. You are here because something in you knows. You know that complaining has never freed you. It has only bound you tighter. You have vented, you have processed, you have shared your frustrations with friends, with therapists, with journals, and still the circumstances persist. Perhaps they have even worsened. And underneath all of that, there is a quiet, growing suspicion that your words are not neutral, that they are doing something, creating something, locking something into place. You are right. This is not a small thing you have stumbled upon. This is the whole secret. I am here to tell you directly what most spiritual teaching will not say. Your complaint is not a symptom of your problem. It is the cause of its continuation. Not because you are being punished, not because the universe is cruel, but because you are operating a law you do not yet understand. Imagination creates reality. Your inner speech, the words you repeat silently and aloud, is the blueprint from which your world is built. When you complain, you are drafting the architecture of tomorrow from the rubble of today. You think you are describing what is. You are not. You are decreeing what shall be. What makes this teaching different from every positive thinking platitude you have ever heard is this. I am not asking you to pretend. I am not asking you to ignore facts or deny your senses. I am asking you to stop consenting to them as final. There is a vast difference between seeing a thing and agreeing to its permanence. The former is awareness. The latter is worship. You have been worshipping your circumstances with your tongue, and they have responded by becoming your God. For 3 days, you will learn to occupy a single assumption. The wish is already fulfilled. You will speak only from that assumption, not as affirmation, not as hope, but as the dwelling place of your I am. And from that inner sanctuary, you will watch the outer world rearrange itself, not because you forced it, but because you stopped contradicting it with your speech. The core pain this addresses is the exhausting belief that you must fight, fix, or force your way into a better life. The unique relief it offers is this. You do not need to change the world. You need only to stop arguing for its current form. When you cease to describe lack, lack ceases to describe you. This is not motivation. This is metaphysical instruction. And if you stay with me until the end, you will know exactly what to say, how to say it, and why, after 72 hours, your life will no longer reflect the person who began listening to these words. Let me tell you about a woman I once knew. Not in the outer world, but in the inner one, where all true meetings occur. She came to me in desperation, as so many do, and said, I have nothing. I have tried everything. I affirm, I visualize, I pray, but every day I wake to the same empty bank account, the same crushing debt, the same humiliation. Every morning, she would open her eyes, and the first thought that would arise was, how will I pay the bills? How will I survive? And with that thought came a cascade of words, spoken silently in the privacy of her mind, but spoken nonetheless with such conviction, such feeling, such absolute certainty, that they became the orders given to her imagination. I cannot do this anymore, she would say to herself. I am drowning. There is no way out. I work so hard and nothing changes. I am cursed. I am unlucky. Money slips through my fingers. I am not meant to prosper. And on, day after day, year after year, these words carved deeper and deeper grooves into her consciousness, until they became the very rails upon which her life ran. She did not see them as creative. She saw them as descriptive. She thought she was simply acknowledging reality. She did not understand that she was creating it. I asked her a simple question. What do you say when you speak of your finances? And without hesitation, without even a pause to think, she began. I say that I am broke, that I cannot afford anything, that the bills keep coming and I have no way to pay them, that I am drowning, that no matter what I do, it is never enough, that I will always struggle, that prosperity is for other people, not for me, that I was not born under a lucky star, that the system is rigged against me, that I am a failure, that I am ashamed, that I am hopeless. I stopped her. I had to, because with every word, I could feel the weight of her assumption pressing down upon her like a stone. And I said to her, you have just told me why your poverty continues. Not because it is true, but because you have made it the truth by speaking it into being, over and over, with the full conviction of your I am. She looked at me, confused, almost offended. But I am only describing what is. I am only telling the truth. What else am I supposed to say? Should I lie? Should I pretend? No, I said. You are not describing what is. You are decreeing what shall be. Every time you say I am broke, you are not reporting on your bank account. You are commanding your imagination to continue producing evidence of that claim. And your imagination, being the creative power of God in you, must obey. It cannot do otherwise. It does not argue with you. It does not question you. It simply says yes, yes to whatever you assume, yes to whatever you speak with conviction, yes to whatever you feel to be true. I gave her an instruction. For 3 days you will not speak one word of lack, not to yourself, not to another. If a bill arrives, you will not say, I cannot afford this. You will say, I am provided for. If fear comes knocking at your door in the middle of the night, you will not say, I do not know how this will work out. You will say, it is done. And you will do this not because you believe it yet, but because you are practicing the speech of the one who already dwells in the answered prayer. You are rehearsing a new identity. You are trying on the garment of the fulfilled wish. And if you wear it long enough, it becomes your skin. It becomes who you are. She was afraid. I could see it in her eyes. But what if it does not work? What if I speak these words and nothing changes? What if I am just lying to myself? What if I look like a fool? I said to her, it is not a matter of working or not working. It is a matter of law. Your assumption, maintained, must harden into fact. This is not hope. This is not wishful thinking. This is the mechanics of creation itself. But you must stop feeding the old assumption with your words. You must starve it into death by giving it no voice. You must withdraw all creative power from it and place that power into the new assumption. And the only way to do that is through your speech. Through what you say to yourself when no one else is listening. Through what you declare when fear rises. Through what you testify to when circumstances seem to contradict you. She agreed. Not because she believed me, not yet, but because she had nothing left to lose. Desperation had made her willing, and sometimes that is enough. Sometimes we must be brought to the end of ourselves before we are willing to try a new way. And so she began. For 3 days, she guarded her tongue. Every time a thought of lack arose, she would catch it before it became speech. Every time fear whispered, she would answer with the phrase I had given her. It is done. Every time she looked at her empty wallet, instead of saying what she had always said, she would say, I am provided for. All is well. My needs are met. I am sustained by the infinite. At first it felt like lying. It felt absurd. It felt like she was speaking into a void, into nothingness, with no one listening. But she persisted. And on the second day, something began to shift. Not in the outer world, not yet, but in her. The constant anxiety that had lived in her chest for years began to loosen. The tightness in her throat began to ease. She began to notice that when she was not speaking lack, she was not feeling lack quite as intensely. The two were connected. Her speech had been reinforcing her feeling, and her feeling had been reinforcing her speech in an endless loop of creation. And on the fourth day, she returned to me, not in person, but in the silent testimony of her transformed circumstance. A check arrived in the mail that she had not expected. It was not a large sum, but it was enough to cover the most pressing bill. A debt was forgiven that she thought would follow her to the grave. The creditor simply wrote it off without explanation. An opportunity opened that had been closed for years. A former employer reached out with a contract, seemingly out of nowhere. Were these coincidences? Were these accidents? Were these random events that just happened to occur after she changed her speech? No. They were the inevitable crystallization of a new assumption, no longer opposed by her daily decree of lack. You see, the outer world had always been trying to match her inner assumption. When her assumption was poverty, the outer world produced poverty. When her assumption changed to provision, the outer world began to produce provision. It had no choice. It is the nature of the law. The inner always precedes the outer. The unseen always precedes the seen. The assumption always precedes the manifestation. Let me tell you about another, a man I once knew. I will call him an architect. Though his building was not made of brick and stone, he built with words. Every day he would rise from his bed, and before his feet touched the floor, before he had even opened his eyes fully, the first structure he would build was this: my back is ruined. I will never be free of this pain. The doctors say there is nothing they can do. I am getting worse every year. This is my life now. This is my cross to bear. I am a man in pain, and I will always be a man in pain. And every year he was. Every year the pain intensified. Every year new limitations arose. Every year he became more and more identified with his suffering until he could not remember a time when he was not in pain. It had become his identity. It had become his story. It had become the lens through which he saw everything. And he spoke this story to everyone who would listen. To his wife, to his friends, to his doctors, to strangers in the grocery store. He wore his pain like a badge. He testified to it with religious fervor. And his imagination, loyal servant that it is, continued to produce evidence to support his testimony. He came to me, bent and bitter, leaning on a cane, moving like a man twice his age, and said, "Why will God not heal me? I have prayed. I have believed. I have done everything right. I have gone to church. I have tithed. I have confessed my sins. I have asked for forgiveness. I have begged for relief. And still the pain remains. Still I suffer. Why? What have I done to deserve this?" I said to him, "You have done everything except one thing. You have not stopped testifying against your healing." He was insulted. He drew back as if I had struck him. "I am not testifying against it. I am telling the truth. I am being honest about my condition. Would you have me lie? Would you have me pretend that I am not in pain when I clearly am?" I said, "The truth is what you assume it to be. Right now, you assume you are a man whose back is ruined. You assume that your pain is permanent. You assume that nothing can be done. You assume that you are a victim of your body, of your genetics, of your past injury, of medical limitation, and so you speak from that assumption. And so your imagination, hearing your conviction, produces more evidence to support it. You are not a victim of your body. You are the creator of it. Your body is not solid. It is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is a flowing garment of flesh that changes every moment to reflect your inner assumptions. Every cell is listening to your speech. Every organ is responding to your conviction. Every bone, every muscle, every nerve is shaped by what you believe yourself to be. And right now, you believe yourself to be a man in chronic pain. And so you are. But you could believe differently. You could assume differently. You could speak differently. And if you did, your body would have no choice but to conform. Every complaint is a prayer for continuance. You are praying for your pain to remain. You are asking your imagination to continue producing the evidence of suffering, and it hears you, and it obeys. I told him, for 3 days you will not mention your back, not to lament it, not to explain it, not to justify why you move slowly or sit carefully. If someone asks, you will say, I am whole, I am restored, I am free. And you will repeat, silently and aloud, my body is perfect. I move with ease. I am healed. I am strong. I am flexible. I am pain-free. Not because you feel it, but because you are assuming the state of the man who is already healed. You are living from the end. You are speaking from the wish fulfilled. And if you persist, the body must conform. It has no choice. It follows consciousness. It always has. It always will. The body is not the cause of pain. Consciousness is the cause. The body is merely the effect. Change the cause and the effect must change. This is law. He resisted. Of course he did. His entire identity was wrapped up in his suffering. To let go of the complaint was to let go of the story he had been telling for so long. It was to let go of the sympathy, the attention, the excuses, the limitations that his pain had provided. It was to step into a new identity, one that carried responsibility, one that carried power, one that could no longer blame or hide. But pain had made him desperate, and desperation sometimes opens the door that pride keeps locked. He agreed. He committed to 3 days, and 3 days later something shifted. Not all at once, not dramatically, not in the way he expected, but the testimony changed. He stopped speaking sickness. He stopped declaring permanence. He stopped identifying with pain, and where speech ceases, form must follow. Within a month, the pain that had ruled him for a decade began to dissolve. Not because he did something new in the outer world, not because he found a new treatment or a new doctor or a new therapy, but because he stopped doing the old thing, authorizing suffering with his tongue. He stopped giving pain the creative power of his I am. Now let me give you a parable, a story that will help you see what you are doing every time you complain. Imagine a gardener who plants a seed in the ground. He waters it faithfully. He tends the soil. He pulls the weeds around it. He gives it sunlight. And one day, a thistle sprouts. Not a rose, not a beautiful flower, a thistle. Thorny, ugly, invasive. The gardener is horrified. I did not want a thistle. I wanted roses. I planted this garden for beauty, for fragrance, for joy, and instead I have this cursed plant. But every day, he kneels before the thistle and speaks to it. Look at this terrible thing. Why does it grow here? I hate it. It ruins my garden. It pricks my fingers. It spreads its seeds everywhere. I cannot believe this is happening to me. Why do I always get thistles? Why do other people get roses and I get thorns? What did I do wrong? And the thistle, hearing his attention, feeling his emotion, absorbing his conviction, grows taller. Its roots deepen. It spreads. It multiplies. It takes over more and more of the garden. Because attention is food. Words are water. Conviction is sunlight. And the gardener, in his complaint, is nourishing the very thing he claims to hate. One day, a stranger passes by and sees the man kneeling before the thistle, speaking to it, tending to it with his focus, and says, "Why do you water what you do not want?" The gardener looks up, confused, almost offended. "I am not watering it. I am complaining about it. Can you not see how much I hate this plant?" The stranger smiles, a knowing smile, and says, "Your attention is water. Your words are sunlight. Your emotion is fertilizer. You think you are rejecting it, but you are feeding it with every sentence. You are commanding it to grow with every thought. You are giving it the substance of your consciousness, and it is becoming more and more real, more and more solid, more and more permanent." The gardener stares at the stranger, and for the first time, he understands. He has been sustaining the thistle with his speech. He has been nourishing it with his focus. He has been creating it with his imagination. And all the while he thought he was simply describing reality. He thought he was simply being honest about the state of his garden. He did not realize that his honesty was his creative act. He did not realize that his description was his decree. The stranger continues, "If you want roses, you must stop speaking of thistles. You must withdraw your attention from what you do not want and place it on what you do want. You must stop watering the weed and start watering the wish. You must see in your imagination the roses you desire. You must smell them. You must touch them. You must speak of them as if they already bloom. And when you do, the thistle will begin to wither, not because you fought it, not because you pulled it up by force, but because you stopped giving it the nourishment of your consciousness." The gardener finally understands. He stops speaking of the thistle. He stops kneeling before it. He stops giving it his time, his attention, his emotion. He withdraws. And in the silence, in the absence of his creative power, the thistle begins to weaken. And then he begins to tend, in his imagination, the roses he desires. He sees them clearly. He sees their color, their shape, their texture. He smells their fragrance. He feels their petals between his fingers. He speaks of them to others as if they are already growing in his garden. And slowly, imperceptibly at first, but then more and more obviously, the roses begin to appear. Not because he forced them, but because he assumed them. Not because he made them grow, but because he stopped making the thistle grow. This is what you are doing with complaint. You think you are describing reality. You are actually watering it. You think you are venting frustration. You are actually issuing commands. You think you are being honest about your struggle. You are actually legislating its continuance. And until you see this, until you truly understand the creative power of your tongue, you will remain trapped in a world of your own unconscious making. Now that you have seen the principle and story, let me take you deeper into the mechanics. Why does this work? What is actually happening when you speak? And more importantly, what do you say instead? You must understand this. And I mean truly understand it, not just intellectually, but in the very core of your being. I am is the name of God, not a metaphor, not a symbol, not a poetic expression. The literal creative power of the universe. When Moses stood before the burning bush, trembling in the presence of the divine, and asked God his name, the answer was not Yahweh or Adonai or Lord. The answer was, I am that I am. I am the self-existent one. I am the causeless cause. I am that which needs no other. I am the beginning and the end. I am, that is you, not a part of you, not your higher self, not some distant aspect of your being that you must reach through meditation or prayer or ritual. You, the one reading these words right now, the one who says I, the one who is aware, that one is God. You are the presence of God in human form. You are the infinite individualized. You are the creator wearing the mask of the creature. And every time you say I am, you are invoking the creative force that spoke worlds into being. You are not describing yourself. You are defining yourself. You are not reporting on your condition. You are commanding it to continue or to change. When you say I am broke, you are not stating a fact about your bank account. You are issuing a decree from the throne of creation. You are saying, let me be broke. Let poverty define me. Let lack surround me. Let limitation be my experience. And your imagination, which is the executive power of I am, which is the creative force that takes the invisible and makes it visible, must produce evidence to match that decree. It cannot do otherwise. It does not have the power to refuse you. It can only obey. You are the king, and imagination is the servant. You are the sculptor, and imagination is the clay. You are the architect, and imagination is the builder. When you say I am sick, you are not acknowledging a condition that exists independently of you. You are consecrating that condition. You are giving it the authority of your divinity. You are baptizing it with the name of God. You are saying, this sickness is who I am. This pain is my identity. This limitation is my reality. And the universe, which is your own wonderful human imagination pushed out into sensory form, bows to your command. It does not argue. It does not question. It does not suggest alternatives. It simply says, yes, your word is law. Your decree is final. Let it be done unto you as you have spoken. This is not a small thing. This is not a minor detail. This is the whole secret. This is the key that unlocks every door. This is the lever that moves every world. Most people move through life never realizing that their speech is law. They believe they are passengers in a vehicle they do not control, moving through a world that happens to them, subject to forces they cannot influence, victims of circumstance and fate and luck. They are not. They are legislators in a parliament of one. They are sovereigns in a kingdom of their own making. They are gods who have forgotten their divinity. And the tragedy, the great tragedy is this. They legislate unconsciously. They speak from habit, from conditioning, from the consensus of others, from the evidence of their senses, from the accumulated weight of past experience. They repeat the same sentences their parents spoke. They echo the same fears their culture taught them. They testify to the same limitations that everyone around them accepts as real. And so they remain trapped in a reality that mirrors their unexamined assumptions. They create the same world, day after day, year after year, generation after generation, never knowing that they have the power to create differently. But you, if you understand this, if you truly grasp what I am telling you, you can begin to speak deliberately. You can begin to assume consciously. You can begin to use your tongue as the creative instrument it was always meant to be. You can begin to say only what you want to be true and refuse to give voice to anything else. This is not denial. This is not pretending. This is not ignoring reality. This is dominion. This is what it means to be made in the image and likeness of God. Not in form, but in function. You create with your word, just as God created with His. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That word is I am, and every time you speak it, you are creating. The world you see is not the cause of your experience. It is the effect of your assumption. Let me say that again, because it is so important. The world you see is not the cause of your experience. It is the effect of your assumption. This is the law of assumption, and it is absolute. It is impersonal. It is unbreakable. It operates with the precision of mathematics, the inevitability of physics, the certainty of logic. An assumption is a belief accepted as true without proof. It is something you take for granted, something you proceed from, something you act as if is already so, regardless of what your senses tell you. When you assume something, you do not wait for evidence. You do not look for confirmation. You do not need permission from the outer world. You simply accept it as true in your inner world, and you live from that acceptance. And when you persist in that assumption, when you maintain it despite contrary evidence, when you return to it again and again, regardless of what appears in the outer world, the evidence must appear. Not because you forced it, not because you manipulated anything, but because your assumption is the mold into which reality pours itself. Your assumption is the pattern, and the world is the fabric. Your assumption is the seed, and experience is the harvest. Let me be absolutely clear about this, because it is the foundation of everything. You are always assuming something. Every moment of every day, you are assuming. You cannot live without assumption. You cannot think without assumption. You cannot act without assumption. Even the decision to read these words is based on assumptions about language, meaning, time, and your own capacity to understand. The question is never whether you assume. The question is only what you assume. Right now, in this very moment, if you are in lack, you are assuming lack. If you are in sickness, you are assuming sickness. If you are in loneliness, you are assuming loneliness. You may not be aware of these assumptions. You may think you are simply observing reality, but you are not. You are assuming a reality, and then observing the evidence of that assumption. The assumption always comes first. Always. The evidence always comes second. Always. And most people get this backwards. They wait for evidence before they will assume. They say, show me that I am wealthy, and then I will assume wealth. Show me that I am healthy, and then I will assume health. Show me that I am loved, and then I will assume love. But that is not how the law works. That is trying to reverse the order of creation. The assumption must come first. The assumption is the cause. The evidence is the effect. And you maintain those assumptions with your words. This is the key. This is the secret within the secret. Every complaint is a confession of your current assumption. Every time you describe what you do not want, you are reaffirming the assumption that it is permanent, that it is real, that it defines you, that it is who you are. You are not simply reporting on a condition. You are reinforcing it. You are deepening it. You are commanding it to continue. You are giving it more and more substance, more and more reality, more and more power over you. But here is the secret that changes everything. Here is the key that unlocks the door. You can change your assumption in an instant, not by changing the outer world, not by manipulating circumstances, not by convincing anyone else, but by changing your inner speech, by changing what you say to yourself, by changing what you testify to, by changing what you assume to be true. When you begin to speak from the assumption that the wish is already fulfilled, you are no longer affirming what is, you are assuming what shall be. And if you persist in that assumption, if you maintain it, if you return to it, if you speak from it consistently, it must harden into fact. This is not magic, this is law. Your assumption, sustained, becomes your experience, always, without exception. Inevitably, you talk to yourself all day long. From the moment you wake until the moment you fall asleep, there is a constant stream of inner speech running through your mind. You may not be aware of it. You may think your mind is quiet, but listen, pay attention. There is always something being said, always a commentary running, always an evaluation happening, always a judgment being made, always a description being formed. And that inner speech, that constant stream of words that only you can hear, is not neutral, it is not passive, it is not mere observation. It is the blueprint from which your world is constructed. It is the script that reality follows. It is the command that circumstance obeys. When you walk past a mirror and think, I look terrible, you are not simply noting a fact, you are drafting an image. You are commanding your imagination to produce more evidence of that image. You are deepening the assumption of unattractiveness. When you check your bank account and think, I will never get ahead, you are not simply assessing your finances. You are writing a script for tomorrow. You are legislating poverty. You are commanding lack to continue. When you lie in bed at night and think, nothing ever works out for me, you are not simply reflecting on your day. You are programming your future. You are assuming failure. You are decreeing limitation. Most people do not guard their inner speech. They do not monitor it. They do not direct it. They do not take responsibility for it. They let it run wild, repeating the same fearful, bitter, hopeless narratives, the same tired old stories, the same limiting beliefs, the same self-defeating patterns. And then they wonder why their circumstances never change. They wonder why they keep experiencing the same problems, the same struggles, the same disappointments, the same failures. They do not see the connection between their inner speech and their outer experience. They do not understand that the two are not separate. They are one. The inner speech is the cause. The outer experience is the effect. But I am telling you, and I am telling you with all the conviction of one who has tested this law in his own life countless times, if you change your inner speech, you change your world. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is not wishful thinking. This is demonstrable fact. This is law. This is the way creation works. And once you see it, once you test it, once you experience it for yourself, you can never unsee it. You can never go back to being unconscious. You can never return to being a victim. This is not about forcing positivity. I am not asking you to pretend that everything is wonderful when it is not. I am not asking you to plaster a fake smile on your face and repeat affirmations you do not believe. I am asking you something far more profound, far more powerful. I am asking you to withdraw your creative power from the story you no longer want to live. I am asking you to stop authorizing the continuance of what you do not desire. I am asking you to cease giving voice to limitation, to lack, to fear, to doubt. Because every time you give voice to it, you give substance to it. Every time you describe it, you decree it. Every time you speak it, you create it. For 3 days, you are going to become aware of your inner speech in a way you have never been aware before. You are going to watch it. You are going to listen to it. You are going to catch it in the act of creating your tomorrow. And every time you catch yourself thinking or saying something that contradicts the wish fulfilled, something that testifies to lack, something that assumes limitation, you are going to stop. You are going to pause. You are going to take a breath. And you are going to gently, firmly, lovingly redirect. You are going to choose a different sentence, a different assumption, a different decree. Instead of "I cannot afford this," you will say, "I am provided for. All my needs are met. Abundance flows to me easily and naturally." Instead of "this always happens to me," you will say, "Everything works in my favor. I am favored by life. I am blessed beyond measure." Instead of "I am so alone," you will say, "I am loved. I am surrounded by goodness. I am never forsaken. I am always held." Not because it is true yet in the outer world, not because you can see evidence of it with your physical eyes, but because you are making it true in the inner world, which is the only world that matters, which is the only world that creates, which is the only world from which all outer worlds flow. Many people confuse affirmation with assumption. They think they are the same. They are not. And understanding this difference is crucial. An affirmation is something you repeat in order to convince yourself of a thing. It is hopeful. It is effortful. It requires repetition because you do not yet believe it. It is saying, "I am trying to believe this. I am working to accept this. I am hoping that if I say it enough times, it will become true." There is strain in it. There is doubt underneath it. There is a gap between the words and the conviction. An assumption is something entirely different. An assumption is something you accept as true, without question, without effort, without repetition. It is restful, it is natural, it is effortless. It says, "This is already so. This is simply the way things are. This needs no proof, because it is self-evident to me." When you assume, you are not trying to convince yourself. You are dwelling in the conviction itself. You are living from the state in which the thing is already true. You are being the person for whom this is simply reality. The goal is not to affirm endlessly. The goal is to assume completely. The goal is to move from effort to rest, from hope to certainty, from becoming to being. And the way you move from affirmation to assumption is through inner speech. When you speak from the wish fulfilled, not to convince yourself, not to make it happen, not to force it into being, but because it is the only thing that makes sense from that state, because it is the natural expression of that consciousness, because it is simply what you would say if you already had it, you are no longer affirming, you are assuming. This is why I do not ask you to repeat a phrase 100 times a day. I do not give you mantras to chant or affirmations to memorize. I ask you to live from the state in which that phrase is your natural expression. I ask you to occupy the consciousness in which those words are not effort but effortlessness. If you say, "I am wealthy," but inwardly you are still seeing lack, still calculating how to make ends meet, still worrying about bills, still fearing poverty, still expecting limitation, you are affirming, not assuming. You are speaking words that contradict your state. And affirmation without assumption is powerless. It is noise. It is empty sound. It produces nothing. But if you say, I am wealthy, and you begin to think from wealth, to speak from wealth, to move through your day as one who is already provided for, as one who has more than enough, as one to whom abundance is natural and expected and inevitable, you are assuming, you are being, you are dwelling in the state itself. And assumption must produce evidence. Assumption sustained must harden into fact. This is law. The difference is subtle but profound. One is trying to become, the other is being. One is reaching for something outside yourself. The other is resting in something that is already within you. You think complaint is harmless. You think it is just venting, just releasing pressure, just expressing what you feel. You think it is healthy to let it out, to share your struggles, to commute with others over how difficult life is. You think you are simply being honest, simply being real, simply acknowledging the facts. You are not. Every complaint is a creative act. Every single time you speak of what you do not want, you are imagining it, feeling it, giving it the substance of your attention and the authority of your I am. You are not releasing it. You are rehearsing it. You are not letting it go. You are deepening it. You are not freeing yourself from it. You are binding yourself to it more tightly. Imagination is the creative power. Feeling is the secret. These are the two ingredients of manifestation. When you complain, when you speak of what you do not want, you are imagining it vividly. You are seeing it, hearing it, feeling it. You are giving it sensory reality in your mind, and at the same time you are feeling the emotion of its continuation. You are feeling the frustration, the anger, the hopelessness, the despair. That combination, imagination plus feeling, is the formula of creation. It is the recipe for manifestation. It is the mechanism by which the invisible becomes visible. You are not describing reality. You are creating it. You are not observing what is. You are commanding what shall be. This is why complaint is so dangerous. This is why it is so insidious. It feels like release, like relief, like honesty. But it is actually rehearsal. It is practice. It is the act of creating more of what you do not want. You are practicing the state you do not want. You are deepening the groove of that assumption. You are carving that neural pathway deeper and deeper into your brain. You are training your imagination to produce more evidence of it. You are commanding your subconscious to continue the pattern. And your imagination, loyal and obedient, without judgment or question, does exactly that. If you want to change your life, you must change your complaint into testimony. Instead of testifying to what is wrong, you must testify to what is right. Instead of speaking of what you lack, you must speak of what you have. Instead of declaring what is not working, you must declare what is working. Not as it appears in the outer world, not according to the evidence of your senses, but as you have assumed it in the inner world, as you have imagined it, as you have decided it shall be. This is the power of the tongue. The Bible speaks of it again and again. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. The tongue can bless or curse. It can decree life or death. It can speak abundance or poverty, health or sickness, love or loneliness, success or failure, joy or misery. It can open the heavens or lock them shut. It can summon angels or demons. It can create paradise or hell. And you have been using it against yourself. You have been cursing yourself with your own mouth. You have been decreeing limitation with the very instrument that was given to you to decree freedom. For 3 days you will use it for yourself. For 3 days you will speak only blessing. For 3 days you will testify only to the wish fulfilled. For 3 days you will use your tongue as the creative power it was always meant to be. Living in the end means occupying in imagination the state that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. It means dwelling there, abiding there, resting there. It does not mean pretending. It does not mean ignoring facts. It does not mean putting on a mask or playing a role. It means dwelling inwardly in the reality you wish to experience outwardly, and speaking only from that reality. When you live in the end, you do not say, I hope to be healed. You say, I am whole. You do not say, I want to be free of debt. You say, I am provided for. You do not say, I wish I were loved. You say, I am loved. You do not say, I will be successful. You say, I am successful. This is not a trick of language. This is not semantic games. This is not positive thinking. This is a shift in identity. It is a change in consciousness. It is a movement from one state to another. You are no longer speaking as the person who lacks. You are speaking as the person who has. You are no longer speaking as the person who desires. You are speaking as the person who possesses. You are no longer speaking as the person who is becoming. You are speaking as the person who is. And in that shift, everything changes. The outer world is a shadow. It has no power of its own. It has no will of its own. It has no substance of its own. The inner world is the substance. The inner world is the reality. The inner world is the cause. When you live in the end inwardly, when you dwell in the wish fulfilled in your imagination, when you speak from that state consistently, the shadow must conform to the substance. The outer must reflect the inner. The visible must mirror the invisible. Not because you forced it, not because you manipulated it, not because you made it happen, but because there is no other possibility, because that is the law, because the inner always precedes the outer, always determines the outer, always creates the outer. This is the meaning of faith. Not belief in a future outcome, not hope that something might happen, not wishful thinking, but occupancy of a present reality, dwelling in the state, being the person, living from the end. You do not have faith that it will happen. You have faith that it is happening, that it has happened, that it is done, that it is finished, that it is already so in the dimension that matters most. And from that state, from that conviction, from that inner knowing, you speak, not to make it so, not to bring it into being, not to manifest it, but because it is so, because it already is, because you are simply reporting from the dimension of the fulfilled wish. In the book of James it is written, the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. Now, I do not interpret this as moral instruction. I do not read it as a warning about gossip or lies or harsh words. I read it as metaphysical law. I read it as a description of how creation works. The tongue represents your power of speech, both inner and outer. It represents the words you speak silently to yourself and aloud to others. It is the instrument through which your imagination expresses itself. It is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It is the mechanism by which thought becomes thing. When Scripture says the tongue setteth on fire the course of nature, it means this. Your words set into motion the events of your life. They ignite the creative process. They activate the law. They set in motion the machinery of manifestation. They summon from the invisible the forms that will appear in the visible. You are not a victim of nature. You are not subject to natural law. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. You are the author of nature. You are the creator of your world. You are the one who sets the course. And your tongue is the pen with which you write. Your tongue is the rudder with which you steer. Your tongue is the match with which you ignite creation. This is why Proverbs says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally, absolutely. You can speak life into your circumstances or death into them. You can speak healing or sickness. You can speak prosperity or poverty. You can speak love or loneliness. You can speak success or failure. You can bless or curse. You can bind or loose, you can open or close, you can create or destroy, all with your tongue, all with your speech, all with the words you choose to speak. Most people use their tongue carelessly. They speak without thinking. They repeat without considering. They testify without realizing the weight of their testimony. They never realize that every word is a seed. Every sentence is a decree. Every story is a script. They plant weeds and wonder why their garden is overrun. They speak poverty and wonder why they remain poor. They testify to sickness and wonder why they do not heal. They declare loneliness and wonder why no one comes. They never make the connection. They never see the law in operation. They never take responsibility for their creative power. But you, if you understand this, if you truly grasp the magnitude of what I am telling you, you can begin to plant deliberately. You can begin to speak consciously. You can begin to use your tongue as the sacred instrument it is. You can begin to speak only what you want to harvest, only what you want to experience, only what you want to become. For 3 days you will discipline your tongue, not as punishment, not as penance, not as self-denial, but as practice, as training, as preparation. You will learn to speak from the wish fulfilled. You will learn to testify to the invisible as if it were visible. You will learn to decree the end from the beginning. And you will watch, you will observe, you will witness as the invisible becomes visible, as the unmanifest manifests, as the word becomes flesh. Now you understand the law. Now you see the mechanics. Now you know the secret. But understanding is not enough. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. You must take this teaching and put it into practice. You must take these principles and test them in your own life. You must move from theory to experience, and I am going to give you the exact steps to take, the precise instructions to follow, the specific practices to implement, beginning today, beginning now, beginning this very moment. Before you begin, you must make a commitment. Not to me. I do not need your commitment. Not to some external authority, but to yourself, to your own divinity, to the God that you are. For the next 72 hours, for the next 3 days, for the next 3 cycles of sunrise and sunset, you will not speak one word of complaint. Not one. Not about your finances, your health, your relationships, your work, your circumstances, your past, your future, your anything. Not aloud, not inwardly, not to another person, not to yourself, not even in the privacy of your own mind where you think no one is listening. This is not about suppression. I am not asking you to stuff your feelings or deny your emotions or pretend everything is fine when it is not. This is about redirection. This is about choosing a different focus. This is about withdrawing creative power from what you do not want and placing it into what you do want. Every time you feel the urge to complain, every time a negative thought arises, every time fear or doubt or worry or frustration begins to speak, you will pause, you will stop, you will take a breath, you will become aware, and you will choose a different sentence. A sentence that reflects the wish fulfilled. A sentence that assumes the end. A sentence that speaks from the state of already having what you desire. If you break the commitment, and you do not punish yourself, you do not condemn yourself, you do not give up. You do not say, I failed, I cannot do this, I am not strong enough. You simply notice, you simply become aware, you simply say, I choose again, and you begin again, right there, right then, in that very moment. But I tell you, if you can hold this commitment for 3 days, if you can guard your tongue for 72 hours, if you can speak only from the wish fulfilled for 3 complete cycles, you will begin to see cracks in the old reality. You will feel the shift before you see it. You will sense the change before it appears. You will know, with an inner knowing that transcends logic, that something has moved in the invisible, and it is only a matter of time before it appears in the visible. Are you ready? Are you willing? Are you committed? Then let us begin. I am going to give you one phrase, one sentence, one decree. You will use this phrase whenever you feel fear rising, whenever lack appears, whenever doubt whispers, whenever the old assumption tries to reassert itself. You will repeat it silently when you are alone. You will say it aloud when you can. You will let it replace the complaint that wants to emerge. You will let it dissolve the worry that wants to speak. You will let it override the limitation that wants to decree itself. The phrase is this, and only this, and nothing but this. It is done. Not it will be done. Not I hope it is done. Not maybe it will be done. Not someday it might be done. It is done. This is the speech of one who dwells in the wish fulfilled. This is the testimony of one who lives from the end. This is the declaration of one who has crossed over from desire to possession, from lack to fulfillment, from becoming to being. It is the inner knowing that the thing you desire is already accomplished in the invisible, already finished in the dimension that matters most, already completed in the realm of imagination, and must therefore, inevitably, inescapably, absolutely, appear in the visible. When the bill comes, and fear rises in your chest, you say, it is done. When the pain flares and despair begins to whisper, you say, it is done. When loneliness knocks at your door in the middle of the night, you say, it is done. When the evidence of your senses contradicts your desire, you say, it is done. You are not trying to convince yourself. You are not hoping it will work. You are not wishing it were true. You are stating the fact from the dimension where it is already true. You are reporting from the realm where the wish is fulfilled. You are speaking from the state of having, not wanting. And in stating it, in declaring it, in decreeing it, you are aligning yourself with that dimension. You are tuning yourself to that frequency. You are assuming that state. You are becoming that consciousness. This phrase will be your anchor when the storm rages. This phrase will be your rock when the waves crash. This phrase will be your foundation when everything shakes. Use it. Return to it. Live from it. Each morning, before you rise from your bed, before you open your eyes fully, before you touch your feet to the floor, before you engage with the outer world, you will lie there in that twilight state between sleep and waking, and you will give yourself an instruction. You will speak to yourself as the Creator speaking to the creation. You will command your day before your day commands you. You will set your assumption before circumstances set it for you. You will say silently or aloud in whatever words feel most natural and powerful to you, something like this. Today I speak only from the wish fulfilled. I do not describe what I see with my physical eyes. I decree what shall be seen by all eyes. I am the creative power. I am the presence of God. I am the I am. My word is law. My assumption is fact. My imagination is the only reality. I speak blessing into my world. I speak provision into my finances. I speak health into my body. I speak love into my relationships. I speak success into my work. It is already done. It is already finished. It is already complete. This is not a prayer to an external God somewhere in the sky. This is not a petition to a deity outside yourself. This is not begging or pleading or hoping. This is a commandment from the God within, which is your own I am, to the world without, which is your imagination pushed out. You are not asking. You are decreeing. You are not requesting. You are commanding. You are not hoping. You are knowing. You are setting the tone for the day. You are choosing the assumption from which you will operate. You are programming your subconscious with the state you wish to embody. And if you do this every morning, if you start every day in this way, if you establish this pattern, you will find that the old complaints lose their grip. They will seem foreign, strange, absurd. They will not arise as automatically. They will not speak as loudly. They will not pull you as strongly. Begin each day in this way, and you will end each day in a different state. You will go to sleep in a different consciousness. You will wake in a different world. Throughout the day, you will pause at intervals, perhaps every few hours, perhaps when you transition between activities, perhaps when you feel yourself slipping back into the old assumption, and take an inner inventory. Stop whatever you are doing, become still, turn your attention inward, and ask yourself these questions. What have I been saying to myself? What has my inner speech been? What testimony have I been giving? What am I assuming right now? Does it reflect the wish fulfilled, or does it reflect the old assumption? Am I speaking from the end, or am I speaking from the middle? Am I testifying to what I want, or am I testifying to what I do not want? If you find that you have been complaining, do not despair. Do not condemn yourself. Do not say, I have failed. Simply notice. Simply become aware, and then redirect. Choose again. Say to yourself, I choose again. I now speak from the truth. I now speak from the end. I now speak from the wish fulfilled. I am whole. I am provided for. I am loved. I am successful. I am blessed. I am favored. All is well. Everything is working together for my good. The universe is conspiring in my favor. I am held. I am sustained. I am guided. I am protected. I am abundant. All my needs are met. I lack nothing. I am complete. This is not about perfection. You will not do this perfectly. You will catch yourself complaining. You will find yourself slipping back into the old speech. You will hear the old assumption speaking through you. This is normal. This is expected. This is part of the process. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be aware. The goal is to catch yourself more quickly. The goal is to choose again more consistently. The goal is to build the new pattern, to carve the new groove, to establish the new assumption. This is about awareness. This is about choice. This is about practice. The more you notice your speech, the more you can shape it. The more you observe your assumptions, the more you can change them. The more you catch yourself testifying to lack, the more you can redirect to abundance. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are not powerless before your mind. You are not at the mercy of your conditioning. You are the master of your consciousness. You are the lord of your imagination. You are the king of your inner kingdom. But mastery requires vigilance. Lordship requires attention. Kingship requires awareness. Practice this inner inventory throughout the day, and you will begin to see the patterns that have kept you bound. You will begin to recognize the grooves of assumption that have been running your life. You will begin to identify the limiting beliefs that have been creating your limitations. And in that awareness, in that recognition, in that identification, you gain the power to change them. Before you sleep each night, before you close your eyes and surrender to unconsciousness, you will practice revision. Revision is one of the most powerful techniques I have ever discovered, and I give it to you now as a sacred gift. Revision is the art of rewriting the day. It is the practice of changing the past in imagination so that the future changes in manifestation. If you spoke complaint today, if you testified to lack, if you fell back into the old assumption, if you gave voice to fear or doubt or limitation, you will now revise it. You will rewrite it. You will reimagine it. Lie in your bed, close your eyes, let your body relax, and replay the day in your mind. When you come to a moment where you complained, where you spoke from lack, where you assumed limitation, stop. Freeze that scene. And now imagine it differently. See yourself in that same situation, but this time, hear yourself speaking from the wish fulfilled. Hear yourself saying, it is done. Hear yourself testifying to abundance. Feel the relief. Feel the peace. Feel the certainty. Feel the joy of already having what you desire. Make it vivid. Make it real. Make it sensory. See the scene. Hear the sounds. Feel the feelings. Let it be as real in imagination as it was in actuality. You are not changing the past in the outer world. The events of the day have already occurred. The words have already been spoken. The actions have already been taken. But you are changing the record in the inner world, which is the only world that creates. You are changing the impression left on your consciousness. You are changing the assumption that was reinforced. You are changing the seed that was planted. When you revise, you are withdrawing creative power from the old event and placing it into the new one. You are telling your imagination, that was not the real event. That was not what truly happened. That was not who I am. This is the real event. This is what truly happened. This is who I am. And your imagination, which does not distinguish between real and imagined, which makes no difference between actual and revised, which responds only to vividness and feeling, accepts the revision as fact. It accepts the new version as the true version. It accepts your decree. And because imagination creates reality, because assumption hardens into fact, because inner speech becomes outer circumstance, the revision you do tonight will change the circumstances you experience tomorrow. Do this every night. Revise every complaint into testimony. Revise every expression of lack into an expression of abundance. Revise every assumption of limitation into an assumption of fulfillment. And you will wake to a world that reflects not what was, but what you have imagined. Not what appeared to be, but what you have assumed to be. Not the old story, but the new one. Your mind is a garden. Your consciousness is fertile soil. And your tongue is the gate through which every seed must pass. For 3 days you will post a guard at that gate. You will station a watchman there. You will place a sentinel at the entrance. And that guard is your awareness. That watchman is your attention. That sentinel is your consciousness. Every thought that wants to pass through, every word that wants to be spoken, every assumption that wants to be voiced, you will inspect. You will examine. You will evaluate. You will ask, does this reflect the wish fulfilled? Does this testify to abundance? Does this assume the end? Or does this reflect the old assumption? Does this testify to lack? Does this assume limitation? If it reflects the wish fulfilled, if it testifies to abundance, if it assumes the end, you let it pass. You speak it, you voice it, you give it permission. But if it reflects the old assumption, if it testifies to lack, if it assumes limitation, you turn it away. You refuse it. You deny it entry. You say no. You cannot pass. You cannot be spoken. You cannot be voiced. You do not reflect who I am. You do not testify to where I dwell. You do not assume what I know to be true. This is not censorship. This is not denial. This is not pretending. This is stewardship. This is dominion. This is kingship. You are not denying reality. You are refusing to authorize its continuance. You are not ignoring facts. You are refusing to consent to their permanence. You are not pretending everything is fine. You are simply refusing to give creative power to what is not fine. The guard is your awareness. The gate is your discipline. The garden is your life. And what grows in that garden depends entirely on what seeds you allow through the gate. Tend it well. Guard it carefully. Be vigilant. Be watchful. Be conscious. Here is a final practice, and it is perhaps the most powerful of all. Throughout the day, in moments of doubt, in moments of fear, in moments when the old world seems to press in upon you, when circumstances seem to contradict your assumption, when evidence seems to deny your decree, speak to yourself as if you are speaking to God, because you are. Speak to yourself with the authority of the Creator. Speak to yourself with the conviction of the infinite. Speak to yourself as I am speaking to I am. Say, I am the creator of my world. I am not waiting for permission from circumstances. I am not begging for change from some external force. I am not hoping that someone or something will save me. I decree it, and it is done. I assume it, and it must be. I speak it, and it comes to pass. I am the resurrection and the life. I call into being that which is not seen as though it were seen, and it appears. I command the invisible to become visible, and it obeys. I am. I am. I am. This is not arrogance. This is not ego. This is not pride. This is truth. This is reality. This is fact. You are not separate from the creative power. You are not a fragment of God. You are not a small piece of the infinite. You are the creative power in human form. You are God individualized. You are the infinite localized. You are all of it, expressing as one. And when you speak to yourself with that authority, when you address yourself with that conviction, when you recognize yourself as that power, you remember who you are. And when you remember who you are, when you awaken to your true identity, when you recognize your divine nature, the old assumptions fall away like rags. The old beliefs dissolve like mist. The old limitations vanish like shadows, because they were never real. They were only assumptions, and assumptions can be changed. Now, I want to speak to you about something that most teachers will not address. I want to speak to you about the resistance you will encounter. Because there will be resistance. Oh yes, there will be. Not from the outer world, though that may resist as well, but from within yourself, from your own mind, from your own conditioning, from your own habitual patterns. There will be moments, many moments, perhaps more moments than you expect, when you will doubt this teaching, when you will question whether it works, when you will wonder if you are simply deceiving yourself, when the outer world will seem so loud, so insistent, so overwhelming, so undeniable, that your new speech will feel foolish. It will feel like pretending, like lying, like denying reality, like putting your head in the sand. In those moments, and they will come, you must remember this. The outer world is always the last to know. It is always lagging behind the inner world. It is always catching up. What you see with your physical eyes is not current. It is not now. It is not present. It is the fossilized record of yesterday's assumptions. It is the hardened form of past consciousness. It is the echo of what you used to believe. It is old news. It is yesterday's newspaper. It is last season's fashion. When you change your assumption, when you change your speech, when you change your inner state, you are planting a new seed. But the seed does not become a tree overnight. There is a period of time, a space, an interval between the planting and the harvest. There is a season of invisibility, a time when nothing seems to be happening, a period when the evidence contradicts the assumption. And in that season, in that space, in that interval, you must persist. You must hold to your new assumption as if your life depends on it, because it does. Not your physical life, perhaps, but your creative life, your spiritual life, your freedom, your power, your divinity. If you waver during that interval, if you return to the old complaint, if you go back to the old speech, if you reassume the old limitation, you are simply extending the gestation period. You are simply delaying the harvest. You are simply pushing the manifestation further into the future. But if you persist, if you remain faithful to the wish fulfilled in your speech, if you continue to speak from the end, regardless of what appears in the middle, the outer world must conform. It has no choice. It is not the creator, you are. It is not the cause, you are. It is the shadow, and you are the substance. It is the effect, and you are the cause. It must follow. It must obey. It must reflect. This is law. I have seen this law operate in my own life countless times, more times than I can number, more times than I can recount. There was a time, long ago, when I too was bound by circumstances, when I believed that the world was something that happened to me, rather than something that happened through me, when I thought I was a victim of forces beyond my control, when I accepted limitation as real and permanent, when I complained, when I lamented, when I spoke of my problems as if they defined me, when I testified to lack as if it were the only truth, and those complaints became my reality. Those words became my world. Those assumptions became my experience. I spoke poverty, and I experienced poverty. I spoke limitation, and I experienced limitation. I spoke struggle, and I experienced struggle. Not because the world was against me, not because I was unlucky, not because I was being punished, but because I was creating it, I was legislating it, I was decreeing it, with my tongue, with my words, with my assumption. But then I discovered the secret I am sharing with you now. I discovered that my imagination was God, that my inner speech was the creative word, that my assumption was the mold into which reality poured itself, and I began to experiment. I began to test the law. I began to speak only from the wish fulfilled, even when the outer world screamed otherwise, even when circumstances contradicted, even when evidence denied, even when logic argued, even when reason objected. At first it felt absurd, ridiculous, foolish. I would say, I am prosperous, while holding an empty wallet. I would say, I am recognized, while sitting in complete obscurity. I would say, I am free, while bound by circumstances that seemed immovable. But I persisted, I continued, I remained faithful, and slowly, imperceptibly at first, but then more and more obviously, things began to change. Not because I had done anything in the outer world, not because I had taken massive action, not because I had manipulated or forced or controlled, but because I had changed my inner world. I had changed my assumption. I had changed my speech, and the outer world, being the faithful servant of the inner, rearranged itself to match. Opportunities appeared that had not existed before. Doors opened that had been locked. People came into my life who had the exact resources I needed. Circumstances shifted in ways I could not have predicted or planned. Money arrived from unexpected sources. Recognition came from unexpected places. Freedom manifested in unexpected ways. And I knew with absolute certainty that it was the law, that it was not luck or coincidence or chance, that it was cause and effect, assumption and manifestation, inner speech and outer circumstance. This is not theory for me. This is not philosophy. This is not belief. This is testimony. This is experience. This is fact. And I am giving it to you now so that you will know this law works. It is impersonal. It is absolute. It is inevitable. It does not care who you are. It does not care what you have done. It does not care where you have been. It does not care what your past looks like. It does not care what your current circumstances are. It only responds to your assumption. It only obeys your conviction. It only manifests your inner speech. And your assumption is revealed by your speech. If you want to know what you are assuming right now, listen to what you say. If you want to know what you will experience tomorrow, listen to what you are speaking today. If you want to change what you experience, change what you say. It is that simple, and it is that powerful. Now, I must address something that often arises when I teach this principle. People say, but what if my complaint is justified? What if I am truly suffering? What if the pain is real? What if the lack is real? What if the injustice is real? What if I am not making it up? What if it is not in my imagination? What if it is actually happening? I do not deny the reality of your experience. I do not ask you to pretend that suffering does not exist. I do not minimize your pain. I do not dismiss your struggle. But I ask you this, and listen carefully to the question. Does speaking of it heal it? Does testifying to it change it? Does dwelling on it dissolve it? Does complaining about it improve it? Does rehearsing it release it? No, it does not. It only deepens it. It only makes it more solid. It only makes it more permanent. It only makes it more defining. It only gives it more reality, more substance, more power. You think that by speaking your pain, you are honoring it. You think that by testifying to your suffering, you are being honest. You think that by complaining about your circumstances, you are being real. You are not. You are consecrating it. You are authorizing it. You are commanding it to continue. You are giving it the creative power of your I am. And as long as you do that, as long as you continue to speak it, as long as you persist in testifying to it, it will persist in manifesting. It will continue. It will remain. It will define you. This is not about denying your feelings. This is not about suppressing your emotions. This is not about pretending everything is fine when it is not. This is about directing your creative power. You can feel pain without speaking it into permanence. You can acknowledge a condition without decreeing its continuance. You can see what is without consenting to what shall be. The difference is everything. The difference is freedom. The difference is power. The difference is creation. When you say, I am in pain, but I am healing, you are acknowledging the present while assuming the future. You are seeing the shadow while dwelling in the substance. You are observing the effect while changing the cause. When you say, I see lack, but I am provided for, you are recognizing the appearance while assuming the reality. You are noting the form while changing the consciousness. You are seeing the manifestation while altering the assumption. This is not denial. This is wisdom. This is mastery. This is the art of living in two worlds at once. The world of sense, which is always passing away, and the world of imagination, which is always becoming real. You have been given the secret, the whole secret, the complete secret, not a piece of it, not a fraction of it, but all of it. Everything you need to transform your life is contained in what I have shared with you. Everything you need to change your circumstances is in these principles. Everything you need to become who you were meant to be is in this law. You do not need anything else. You do not need another teaching. You do not need another teacher. You do not need another technique. You simply need to apply what you now know. Let me tell you one more story before we come to the close. A story that will crystallize everything I've been saying. There was a woman who came to one of my lectures many years ago. She sat in the back row, skeptical, arms crossed, face set in an expression of doubt. After the lecture, she approached me and said, "This sounds good in theory, but my life is too far gone. My marriage is dead. My finances are in ruins. My health is failing. My children do not speak to me. I am too old. It is too late. I have made too many mistakes. There is too much evidence against me. How can words change any of that?" I looked at her and said, "Your words created all of that. Every bit of it. Every circumstance you just described. You spoke it into being. You testified to it. You assumed it. You decreed it. And now you are living in the world your words built. But the same power that created it can uncreate it. The same tongue that cursed can bless. The same assumption that manifested limitation can manifest freedom. You are not too old. It is not too late. You have not made too many mistakes. There is no amount of evidence that can override a changed assumption. The past does not bind you unless you continue to speak it into the present." She did not believe me. I could see it in her eyes. But something in her was desperate enough to try. I gave her the same instruction I am giving you. For 3 days, speak only from the wish fulfilled. Not one word of complaint about your marriage, your finances, your health, your children. Not one testimony to lack or limitation. Speak only as the woman whose life is exactly as she desires it to be. She agreed, reluctantly, doubtfully, but she agreed. 3 months later, she wrote to me. "I had to write this down," she said, "because I can hardly believe it myself. I stopped complaining about my husband. I stopped speaking of how distant he was, how cold, how checked out, and I began to say, my husband adores me. My husband cherishes me. My husband pursues me." It felt like lies at first, but I persisted, and within 2 weeks he began to change. Or perhaps I began to change, or perhaps the assumption changed and we both conformed to it. But conversations that had not happened in years began to happen. Tenderness that had disappeared began to return. Connection that I thought was dead began to revive. I stopped complaining about money. I stopped saying I cannot afford it. I stopped testifying to debt and lack and never enough. And I began to say, I am provided for. Money comes to me easily. My needs are always met. And opportunities began to appear. A job I had not applied for was offered to me. A debt I thought I would carry forever was forgiven. Income began to flow from sources I had not anticipated. I stopped complaining about my body. I stopped saying I am falling apart, I am getting old, I am sick. And I began to say I am whole, I am vital, I am strong. And the pain that had been my constant companion began to ease. Energy I had not felt in decades began to return. And my children, I stopped complaining about them to my friends, to my family, to myself. I stopped saying they do not call, they do not care, they have forgotten me. And I began to say, my children love me, my children honor me, my children seek my company. And within a month, one of them reached out, then another, then all of them, not because I manipulated them, not because I guilted them, but because I changed my assumption about them, and they felt the change and they responded to it. I do not understand how this works, she wrote. But it works. And I am telling this story because some of you need to hear it. Some of you are sitting there thinking, my situation is too far gone. My circumstances are too entrenched. My problems are too big. My past is too heavy. And I am telling you, no, they are not. The only thing that makes them permanent is your continued testimony to them. The only thing that keeps them in place is your persistent assumption of them. The only thing that gives them power is your repeated decree of them. Stop speaking them, and they begin to dissolve. Change your assumption, and they begin to change. Speak from the end, and the middle rearranges itself. This is the power you have been given. This is the dominion you were born with. This is the creative authority that is your birthright. And for 3 days you are going to exercise it. For 3 days you are going to remember who you are. For 3 days you are going to speak as the God you are. Not the victim, not the limited one, not the one at the mercy of circumstance, but the Creator, the infinite, the one who calls into being that which is not seen as though it were seen, and it appears. Now let me address the fear that I know is arising in some of you. The fear that says, what if I do this and nothing changes? What if I speak from the wish fulfilled for 3 days and my circumstances remain the same? What if I guard my tongue and nothing happens? What if this is just another false promise, another empty technique, another thing that works for other people but not for me? Let me tell you something about this fear. This fear is just another assumption. It is just another story. It is just another decree. And if you speak it, if you give it voice, if you testify to it, it will become true. Not because the law does not work, but because you assumed it would not work, and the law gave you exactly what you assumed. The law is impersonal. It does not care whether you assume success or failure. It simply manifests whatever you assume. If you assume this teaching will not work for you, it will not work for you. Not because the teaching is flawed, but because your assumption is creative. If you assume you are the exception, you will be the exception. If you assume you are different, you will be different. If you assume you are broken beyond repair, you will experience being broken beyond repair. Not because it is true, but because you made it true with your assumption. But if you assume this law will work for you, it will work for you. If you assume you are the rule, not the exception, you will experience being the rule. If you assume your circumstances can change, they will change. If you assume you have the power to create your reality with your words, you will discover that you have always had that power, and you will begin to use it consciously instead of unconsciously. The law works. It always works. It never fails. It cannot fail. It is not a sometimes thing. It is not a maybe thing. It is not a works for some people but not others thing. It is absolute. It is universal. It is impersonal. And it is working right now. Whether you believe in it or not, whether you understand it or not, whether you like it or not. The only question is, are you working it consciously or unconsciously? Are you using it deliberately or accidentally? Are you creating on purpose or by default? For 3 days, you are going to use it consciously. You are going to use it deliberately. You are going to create on purpose. And you are going to discover something remarkable. You are going to discover that you have been creating all along. That every circumstance in your life is the result of an assumption you held. That every condition is the manifestation of a consciousness you occupied. That every limitation is the product of a belief you spoke into being. And when you discover that, when you truly see it, when the veil is lifted and you recognize yourself as the creator, you will be free. Not free from circumstances. Free from the belief that circumstances have power over you. Not free from the world. Free from the belief that the world determines your experience. Not free from your past. Free from the belief that your past defines your future. You will be free because you will know that you are the operant power, that you are the one who creates, that you are the one who decides, that you are the one who determines what shall be. Let me tell you about the nature of time in a way that will help you understand why 3 days is enough. Time, as you experience it, is not linear. It is not a river flowing in one direction from past to future. It is not a road you travel from birth to death. Time is a dimension of consciousness. It is a mode of perception. It is a way of organizing experience. And in the dimension of imagination, which is the dimension of reality, all time exists now. The past is now. The future is now. Everything that has ever been and everything that will ever be is happening now, in this eternal present moment. The only reason you experience time as linear, as sequential, as one thing after another, is because of your assumption, because of the state of consciousness you occupy. When you occupy a state of lack, you perceive a past of lack, a present of lack, and a future of lack. When you occupy a state of abundance, you perceive a past that led to abundance, a present of abundance, and a future of continued abundance. The state determines the perception of time. The assumption organizes the experience of sequence. This is why the past can be changed. This is why revision works. This is why you can reimagine yesterday and change tomorrow. Because the past is not fixed. It is not solid. It is not unchangeable. It is a memory. And memory is imagination turned backward. When you revise the past in imagination, you are not changing what happened in some external objective timeline. You are changing the assumption from which you are now living. You are changing the state you now occupy. You are changing the consciousness that now creates. And when you change the consciousness, the entire perception of time changes. The entire sequence rearranges itself. The entire story rewrites itself. So when I say 3 days, I am not talking about 3 rotations of the earth. I am not talking about 72 hours on a clock. I am talking about 3 complete cycles of consciousness, 3 full rounds of assumption, 3 complete inhabitations of the wish fulfilled. It could happen in 3 literal days. It could happen in 3 moments. It could take 3 weeks. The outer measurement does not matter. What matters is the completeness of the assumption. What matters is the totality of the shift. What matters is the fullness of the inhabitation. Some of you will experience dramatic shifts within the first day. The moment you stop complaining, the moment you begin to speak from the wish fulfilled, the moment you assume the end, you will feel the change. It will be undeniable. It will be palpable. It will be real. Others will experience a gradual shift, a slow transformation, a gentle unfolding. The outer circumstances may not change immediately, but the inner state will change, and you will know that the outer must follow. And still others will experience what seems like nothing for the first 2 days, and then on the 3rd day, or the 4th day, everything will suddenly click into place. The manifestation will appear, the evidence will arrive, the wish will be fulfilled. Do not compare your experience to anyone else's. Do not judge your progress by another's timeline. Do not assume you are doing it wrong because someone else seems to be doing it better. The law works individually. It operates personally. It manifests uniquely. Your journey is your own. Your assumption is your own. Your consciousness is your own. Trust the process. Trust the law. Trust yourself. The only way you can fail is if you return to the old speech. The only way you can delay the manifestation is if you resume the old assumption. The only way you can prevent the change is if you continue to testify to what you do not want. But if you persist, if you remain faithful, if you continue to speak from the wish fulfilled regardless of what appears, the change must come, the shift must happen, the manifestation must appear. This is law. This is truth. This is reality. Now, I want to speak to you about something that may seem paradoxical at first, but is actually the key to the entire teaching. I want to speak to you about effortlessness. You see, this work is not about effort. It is not about strain. It is not about forcing or pushing or making something happen. It is about assumption. And assumption, when it is truly assumption and not mere affirmation, is effortless. When you assume something, you do not have to work at believing it. You do not have to convince yourself of it. You do not have to repeat it endlessly to make it stick. You simply accept it as true, and you proceed from that acceptance. It is natural. It is easy. It is restful. Think about the assumptions you already hold. You assume that the sun will rise tomorrow. Do you have to work at believing that? Do you have to affirm it 100 times? Do you have to force yourself to accept it? No. You simply know it. It is a given. It is self-evident. It requires no effort. This is what I want you to understand about assuming the wish fulfilled. When you truly assume it, when you genuinely occupy that state, it feels natural. It feels easy. It feels right. It feels like coming home. There is no strain in it. There is no struggle in it. There is no effort in it. You are not trying to be someone you are not. You are being who you always were, beneath the assumptions of limitation. You are not forcing yourself to believe something false. You are accepting something true that the false assumptions had hidden. If speaking from the wish fulfilled feels like strain, like effort, like you are forcing yourself, you are still affirming, not assuming. You are still trying to convince yourself rather than dwelling in the conviction. And that is okay. That is part of the process. Affirmation often precedes assumption. Repetition often leads to acceptance. But the goal is to move from effort to effortlessness, from strain to rest, from trying to being. And you will know you have moved into true assumption when speaking from the wish fulfilled begins to feel more natural than speaking from lack. When testifying to abundance begins to feel more true than testifying to poverty. When assuming the end begins to feel more real than assuming the middle. This is why I do not ask you to spend hours a day visualizing or affirming or repeating mantras. This is why I do not give you complicated techniques or elaborate rituals. I simply ask you to change your speech, to guard your tongue, to speak only from the wish fulfilled, because speech is the most natural expression of consciousness. It is the overflow of assumption. It is the voice of the state you occupy. When you change your speech, you are changing your state. When you discipline your tongue, you are shaping your consciousness. When you speak from the end, you are living from the end. And living from the end is effortless once you are truly there. So do not make this hard. Do not make this complicated. Do not make this a burden. It is not. It is liberation. It is freedom. It is the discovery of your own creative power. It is the remembering of your divine nature. It is the awakening to who you have always been. For 3 days, simply notice what you say. Notice what you think. Notice what you assume. And whenever you catch yourself complaining, whenever you hear yourself testifying to lack, whenever you find yourself speaking from limitation, pause, breathe, and choose again. Choose the speech of the wish fulfilled. Choose the testimony of abundance. Choose the decree of the end, and do it gently. Do it lovingly. Do it with compassion for yourself. You are unlearning a lifetime of conditioning. You are breaking patterns that have been carved deep. You are creating new grooves in consciousness. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be merciful with yourself. But also be committed, be vigilant, be faithful. Because this is the most important work you will ever do. This is the work of becoming conscious, the work of awakening, the work of remembering. Everything else in your life depends on this. Every circumstance, every relationship, every experience, every manifestation flows from your state of consciousness. And your state of consciousness is revealed and shaped by your speech. Change your speech, and you change everything. I am going to tell you now what will happen on the fourth day. On the fourth day, you will wake as a different person, not because your outer circumstances have necessarily changed, though they may have begun to. Not because your problems have necessarily dissolved, though they may have started to, but because you have changed. Your identity has shifted. Your assumption has transformed. Your consciousness has elevated. You will no longer be the person who complains. You will no longer be the person who testifies to lack. You will no longer be the person who speaks from limitation. You will be the person who has discovered their creative power, the person who knows their divine nature, the person who has remembered who they are. And from that new identity, from that transformed consciousness, from that elevated state, new circumstances must flow. They cannot not flow. It is impossible for them not to flow. Because the outer world is the mirror of the inner world. Because circumstances are the reflection of consciousness. Because manifestation is the evidence of assumption. You will move through your life differently. You will speak differently. You will think differently. You will assume differently. And the world will respond differently. People will treat you differently. Opportunities will present themselves differently. Resources will come to you differently. Not because you forced anything, not because you manipulated anything, but because you changed the consciousness from which you were creating, and the creation changed to match. This is not magic. This is law. This is not supernatural. This is natural. This is not mystical in the sense of being mysterious or inexplicable. This is mystical in the sense of being the mechanics of reality itself. You are not doing something extraordinary. You are simply doing what you have always been doing, but consciously instead of unconsciously. You have always been creating your reality with your assumptions. You have always been manifesting your circumstances with your speech. You have always been the operant power. You just did not know it. You just did not realize it. You just did not take responsibility for it. For 3 days you are taking responsibility. You are claiming your power. You are stepping into your dominion. You are remembering your divinity. And once you do that, once you taste that, once you experience that, you can never fully forget it again. Oh, you may slip back into unconsciousness from time to time. You may fall back into old patterns occasionally. You may find yourself complaining again, testifying to lack again, speaking from limitation again. But you will catch yourself more quickly. You will recognize what you are doing more clearly. You will redirect more easily. Because you will know, you will have experienced it for yourself. You will have tested the law in your own life. You will have seen it work. And once you have seen it work, once you have witnessed the evidence, once you have tasted the fruit, you can never fully doubt it again. This is the transformation I am inviting you into. Not a temporary change. Not a 3-day experiment that ends and you go back to the old way. But a permanent shift in consciousness. A fundamental change in how you understand yourself and your relationship to reality. A complete transformation in how you use your creative power. 3 days is the beginning. 3 days is the initiation. 3 days is the awakening. But what comes after is a lifetime of conscious creation. A lifetime of deliberate manifestation. A lifetime of living from the wish fulfilled instead of waiting for it. Some of you are wondering, what happens after 3 days? Do I go back to normal? Do I start complaining again? Do I return to the old speech? No. No, you do not. The 3 days is not a temporary practice. It is the establishment of a new pattern. It is the formation of a new habit. It is the creation of a new default. After 3 days, you will have experienced the power of disciplined speech. You will have felt the shift that comes from speaking only from the wish fulfilled. You will have begun to see evidence of the change. And that experience will motivate you to continue. That feeling will inspire you to persist. That evidence will convince you to make this your permanent way of being. The 3 days is the breakthrough. What comes after is the follow-through. The 3 days is the crack in the old reality. What comes after is the complete transformation. The 3 days is the seed. What comes after is the harvest. So, after 3 days, you continue. You keep guarding your tongue. You keep speaking from the wish fulfilled. You keep testifying to the invisible as if it were visible. Not because it is a technique you are practicing, but because it has become who you are. Not because you are trying to manifest something, but because you are living as the one who has already manifested it. Not because you are working the law, but because you are being the law. This is the ultimate goal. Not to use the law like a tool that is separate from you, but to become the law, to be the creative power, to live as the I am that you are. And when you reach that state, when you embody that consciousness, when you become that truth, manifestation is no longer something you do. It is something you are. Creation is no longer something you practice. It is something you embody. Power is no longer something you seek. It is something you express. This is the promise. This is the destination. This is the fulfillment. Now we are coming to the close, and I want to leave you with something to carry forward, something to remember, something to return to whenever you feel yourself slipping back into the old way. A truth so simple and so profound that it contains the entire teaching in a single sentence. Here it is. You are not broken. You have only been speaking against yourself. Stop. And the miracle begins. That is it. That is the whole teaching in one statement. You are not broken. You are not damaged. You are not limited. You are not powerless. You are not a victim. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. You have only been speaking against yourself. You have only been testifying to limitation. You have only been assuming lack. You have only been decreeing struggle. You have only been commanding poverty with your tongue. Stop. Stop complaining. Stop testifying to what you do not want. Stop assuming limitation. Stop speaking from lack. Stop decreeing struggle. Stop commanding poverty. Just stop. And the miracle begins. Not in 3 days. Not in 3 weeks. Not in 3 months. Now. The moment you stop speaking against yourself, the moment you stop testifying against your good, the moment you stop decreeing limitation, the miracle begins. The shift starts immediately. The transformation commences instantly. The change is set in motion right then. You may not see it immediately in the outer world. The evidence may take time to appear. The manifestation may take time to form. But in the invisible, in the realm of consciousness, in the dimension of imagination, the miracle has already begun the moment you stop speaking against it and start speaking for it. You do not need to fight your circumstances. You do not need to force change. You do not need to make anything happen. You need only to stop opposing your good with your speech. You need only to stop testifying against your desire with your words. You need only to stop assuming limitation with your tongue. When you stop, there is space. When there is space, consciousness can shift. When consciousness shifts, circumstances must follow. The miracle is not something you create. The miracle is what happens naturally when you stop preventing it. Think about that. You are not creating the good you desire. You are stopping the prevention of it. The good is already yours in the infinite. The abundance is already present in imagination. The health is already perfect in consciousness. The love is already surrounding you in the invisible. But you have been speaking against it. You have been testifying against it. You have been assuming against it. You have been decreeing against it, and your speech has been blocking it, preventing it, opposing it, denying it. Stop the opposition, and the good flows naturally. Stop the prevention, and the abundance appears naturally. Stop the decree of lack, and the fulfillment manifests naturally. This is the effortlessness I spoke of earlier. This is the rest. This is the Sabbath. You are not laboring to create. You are resting in what already is. You are not working to manifest. You are ceasing from the work of opposition. You are not striving to become. You are stopping the prevention of being. And in that stopping, in that ceasing, in that resting, the miracle happens. The wish is fulfilled. The prayer is answered. The desire manifests. I have given you the instruction. I have shared the law. I have revealed the secret. Now you must apply it. Now you must practice it. Now you must live it. For 3 days, stop complaining. For 3 days, speak only from the wish fulfilled. For 3 days, assume the end. For 3 days, testify to the invisible as if it were visible. For 3 days, decree with your tongue what you desire with your heart. And on the 4th day, look at your life. Feel your state. Notice the shift. Observe the change. Witness the transformation. And you will know, beyond any doubt, beyond any question, beyond any argument, that you are the Creator, that your word is law, that your imagination is God, that your assumption manifests, that your speech creates. And in that knowing, you will be free, free from the tyranny of circumstance, free from the prison of limitation, free from the bondage of unconscious creation. You will be free because you will know who you are. And when you know who you are, when you remember your divine nature, when you recognize your creative power, nothing can bind you, nothing can limit you, nothing can imprison you. You are the I am, the infinite, the eternal, the Creator. And it is time you began to speak like it. It is time you began to think like it. It is time you began to live like it. If this teaching has stirred something in you, if you feel the truth of it resonating in your chest, if you sense the power of it awakening in your being, then I invite you to mark this moment. Do not let this be just another video you watched. Do not let this be just another teaching you heard. Do not let this be just another idea you considered. Let this be the moment you decide, the moment you commit, the moment you begin. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you will stop complaining about. Tell me what you will now assume. Tell me what you will speak into being. Let your words be your first testimony of change. Let your declaration be your first act of creation. Let your commitment be your first step into conscious power. And if you want more, if you want to go deeper into the law, into the promise, into the mystical teachings that most will never hear, into the profound truths that transform not just circumstances, but consciousness itself, then subscribe to this channel. Because I am here to take you all the way, not just to better circumstances, not just to manifested desires, but all the way into the recognition of who you truly are, all the way into the remembrance of your divine nature, all the way into the full realization of your creative power. You are not a seeker of truth. You are the truth seeking to express itself. You are not a seeker of God. You are God seeking to know Himself. You are not a seeker of power. You are power seeking to be conscious of itself. Now speak it into being. Now assume it completely. Now live from the end. It is done. It is finished. It is complete. The miracle has already begun. Not because I said so. Not because you hoped so. Not because you wished so. But because you stopped speaking against it.